Something reportedly cracked inside the Indiana Fever practice facility last week. It wasn't the sound of sneakers squeaking or the thud of a basketball on hardwood. It was something deeper, something fragile. This time the tension wasn't about stats, playing minutes, or even wins. It was about control. According to multiple insiders, what began as a routine midweek practice spiraled into a moment that could redefine the Fever's entire identity. Head coach Stephanie White and rookie superstar Caitlin Clark allegedly exchanged heated words during practice. It wasn't physical, but it was sharp enough to slice through the team's chemistry. Witnesses say one phrase echoed through the gym louder than any whistle. "I'm still the coach here." And from that moment, nothing felt the same inside the locker room. When Indiana drafted Caitlin Clark as the #1 overall pick, the move seemed destined for success. Clark, the record-shattering scorer who had turned college basketball into a global spectacle, was expected to breathe new life into a struggling franchise. Stephanie White, a respected coach and former player known for her discipline and leadership, appeared to be the perfect mentor to harness Clark's fire. For months, they spoke highly of each other, White calling Clark a generational player, Clark praising White's trust and structure. But as fame swelled and pressure mounted, that balance began to shift. The Fever were no longer just a basketball team. They were a phenomenon, and everything, from practice routines to media schedules, started orbiting around one name: Caitlin Clark. Insiders revealed that the Fever's operations had become a tug-of-war between basketball priorities and branding obligations. Players were reportedly asked to alter their schedules for Clark's sponsor commitments. Marketing teams began reviewing practice footage for viral moments. The shift was subtle at first, but for veterans and staff, it was impossible to ignore. Basketball had started to feel secondary to optics. Stephanie White, committed to structure and discipline, tried to preserve order. But maintaining authority in a franchise revolving around a media superstar proved difficult. As one insider put it wasn't about disrespect, it was about imbalance. Clark's influence outside the gym had begun to reshape what happened inside it. Then came the practice that changed everything. Following a frustrating loss, White reportedly wanted to slow things down, to focus on defense, fundamentals, and rhythm. Clark, locked into her own flow, wanted more speed, more freedom, more instinct-driven offense. When White stopped a drill to reset, Clark kept directing her teammates, continuing the flow. That's when it happened. White's patience broke. Clipboard slammed. Her voice cut through the gym. "Enough! I'm still the coach." What followed was silence. Not the peaceful kind. An uncomfortable stillness that made everyone freeze. Players like Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell reportedly went quiet. Assistant coaches didn't move. Clark didn't argue. She just nodded slightly, picked up her ball, and walked toward the sideline. Practice ended soon after. The Fever held a private team meeting later that day. Veterans voiced frustration, not directly at Clark, but at the atmosphere that had built around her. Some players reportedly felt overshadowed, while others defended Clark's passion and leadership. Stephanie White emphasized unity, but the tension hung thick in the air. That night, several players went out together seeking relief from the pressure. Meanwhile, Clark's management team reportedly reached out to executives, concerned about how the story might leak to the press. Within days it did. The phrase "heated exchange at practice" began circulating online, and the story exploded before anyone could contain it. Fans immediately split into camps. Some accused White of losing the locker room. Others claimed Clark had become too powerful, that her celebrity outweighed her accountability. And then came the front office scramble. Fever owner Steve Simon reportedly convened an emergency meeting with executives and PR staff. The message was clear: keep the story quiet, manage the optics, and above all, protect the brand. But beneath the surface, Simon faced an impossible choice. Back the coach who represented structure and authority, or the superstar who was the franchise's future. Because the truth is, this wasn't just about one argument. It was about who truly runs the modern WNBA, the coach, the player, or the brand. Publicly, everyone played their roles. Stephanie White smiled through interviews, praising Clark's competitiveness. Clark echoed the sentiment, calling White a motivator who makes her better. But those who watched closely noticed the cracks. The hugs after big wins stopped. Clark's tone in press conferences grew colder. White's words sounded more measured, more guarded. It wasn't hostility, it was distance. Both women seemed to understand that the only way forward was through silent coexistence. Not because peace had been restored, but because neither could afford another storm of headlines. Insiders began debating where the leaks came from. Some believed White's allies wanted to expose how much influence Clark held. Others thought Clark's camp intentionally released a softened version of events to frame it as competitive passion rather than rebellion. Whatever the truth, the damage was done. Fans debated endlessly online. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who truly holds power in the Fever organization? Meanwhile, management shifted attention to highlight reels, ticket promotions, and charity events, classic distraction tactics in sports PR. This story, however, goes beyond Indiana. It touches the heart of what the WNBA is becoming. For decades, coaches like Stephanie White represented order, discipline, and respect. But now, players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are rewriting the rules. They're not just athletes, they're brands, empires, and cultural forces. They bring in record-breaking ratings, ticket sales, and sponsors the league has never seen. But that success comes with growing pains. When an athlete becomes bigger than the team, the old systems of authority begin to crumble. Coaches have to adjust, owners have to navigate egos, and teammates have to redefine what leadership looks like. Stephanie White stands for the league's traditional values: structure, accountability, hierarchy. Caitlin Clark symbolizes its future: freedom, charisma, marketability. Their reported clash wasn't personal, it was philosophical. It was a confrontation between what the WNBA has always been and what it's becoming. If Indiana can't find a balance between those two worlds, every other team with a rising superstar will face the same storm. As of now, the Fever continue to move forward. Practices have calmed, but the undercurrent remains. Clark keeps delivering on the court, breaking records and filling arenas. White remains composed on the sidelines, guiding her team with quiet intensity. Yet behind every timeout and every highlight, there's an unspoken question lingering over the franchise. Can these two powerful women coexist in the same ecosystem without tearing it apart? Because if they can't, the consequences go far beyond the Fever. The entire WNBA's future could hinge on how this story unfolds. Coaches may start losing authority. Players may gain even more control. The balance of power in women's sports may shift forever. And for a league finally basking in the spotlight, that could be both its greatest triumph and its biggest test. At the end of the day, this isn't about who raised their voice first or who backed down last. It's about the evolution of power in women's basketball. Once upon a time, the coach's word was final. Today, the player is the system. Stephanie White has earned her authority. Caitlin Clark has earned her influence. The real question is no longer who's right, it's whether they can build something greater together. Because the Fever's success, and perhaps the entire WNBA's next decade, depends on it. If you think Stephanie White was right to reassert control, drop a fire emoji in the comments. If you believe Caitlin Clark's leadership should shape the future, hit that like button and tell us what you think. Either way, this story is far from over. Subscribe now, because when the next chapter of this Fever saga breaks, it won't just shake Indiana, it could change the league forever.